The impossible request. The Kingston Grand was a gleaming testament to luxury in downtown Seattle, and Olivia Mercer was its invisible backbone. For 3 years, she had served as operations manager, rising before dawn and leaving long after the city lights turned the bay into a mirror of stars. Her staff respected her. The guests never saw her. That was exactly how it was supposed to be. Ms. Mercer, the Jensen wedding party is requesting a last-minute change to their banquet setup. Tori, her assistant, appeared at her office door with the day's 17th crisis. Olivia nodded, already mentally rearranging staff schedules. Tell Frances to hold off on the ballroom prep. I'll be there in 5 to assess. Her calendar glowed red with overlapping appointments, each one urgent, each one requiring her particular blend of efficiency and diplomacy. The Harrington Conference, the Japanese business delegation, the charity gala prep, and it was only Tuesday. She pressed her fingertips to her temples, where a familiar ache had taken up residence weeks ago. The hotel industry didn't reward weakness. Her predecessor had taken exactly 2 sick days in 7 years before retiring. Olivia had taken none. Also, Tori hesitated, Mr. Kingston is here. Olivia's head snapped up. Darius Kingston, heir to the Kingston hospitality empire, rarely visited this property. Rumors painted him as brilliant but reserved, more interested in architecture and design than day-to-day operations. When he did appear, it usually meant change was coming. And in Olivia's experience, change rarely favored those who kept things running. Where is he now? She asked, straightening her charcoal blazer. Waiting in your office. Olivia blinked. My office? She glanced through the glass wall behind Tori. Indeed, a tall figure stood by her window, hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the rainy Seattle skyline. He specifically asked to see you, alone. Her stomach tightened. She'd only interacted with him directly twice before, once during her initial interview and again when she'd presented her operational efficiency report last year. Both times, his intense focus had been simultaneously unnerving and something else she couldn't afford to acknowledge. Thank you, Tori. Handle the Jensen situation. Move them to the harbor view room if needed. Smoothing her slicked-back ponytail, she stepped past her assistant and into her office. Mr. Kingston, this is unexpected. He turned, and Olivia was struck again by how little he resembled the typical hotel magnate. No flashy watch or power tie, just thoughtfully tailored clothes in subdued colors that suggested quality without demanding attention. His dark hair, slightly longer than conventional business standards, framed features that were more interesting than handsome. Observant eyes, a serious mouth that rarely smiled. Ms. Mercer, please call me Darius. His voice was quiet but carried weight. I've been reviewing the quarterly reports. Her performance evaluations had been exemplary. Still, she felt her shoulders tense. I hope everything is satisfactory. More than satisfactory. Remarkable, actually. He picked up a small award on her desk. Employee of the Year, 2 years running. Which is why I'm concerned. Concerned? Your vacation balance. He set down the award. According to HR, you haven't taken a single day off in nearly 3 years. Not even a long weekend. Of all the things she'd expected, this wasn't it. The hotel requires nothing that justifies burning out our most valuable manager. His gaze was steady. Take this weekend off. It wasn't a suggestion. Mr. Kingston, Darius, we have the governor's conference starting Friday and your extremely capable team will handle it. He moved closer. Unless you don't trust them? A strategic blow. Olivia prided herself on her team development. Of course I trust them. But my responsibility is also to yourself. For the first time, something like a smile touched his mouth. I have a proposal. Take the weekend off and spend Saturday with me. The world seemed to tilt slightly. Excuse me? Nothing inappropriate. I'm opening a new property in the San Juan Islands. I'd like your professional opinion. Professional, of course. Yet something in his eyes suggested more. Something that made her pulse quicken unexpectedly. Consider it a working retreat, he continued. Though I insist you actually rest for at least part of it. She should refuse. It crossed boundaries, blurred lines, yet the thought of escaping the endless demands, just for a moment, I'll think about it, she said finally. Don't think too long. He moved toward the door, then paused. Sometimes, Olivia, the most dedicated people forget what they're working for. After he left, she stood motionless in her office, wondering why his words felt like they'd cracked something open inside her, something she'd sealed shut long ago. A day outside time. Saturday dawned with uncharacteristic sunshine breaking through Seattle's cloud cover. Olivia stood in her apartment, staring at her open closet with unfamiliar indecision. After 3 years of power suits and sensible heels, she'd forgotten how to dress for anything else. She finally settled on dark jeans, a cashmere sweater, and boots that weren't designed for rushing through hotel corridors. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Downstairs in 15, bring a jacket. D, no please, no if that works for you. Just the assumption of compliance. She should be irritated, but something about his directness was refreshing after years of corporate doublespeak. When she stepped outside, a sleek Range Rover idled at the curb. Darius Kingston leaned against it, dressed in a way she'd never seen him, dark jeans much like her own, a gray Henley beneath a leather jacket. Without his usual suits, he looked younger, more approachable, though no less intense. You came, he said simply. I said I would. People say many things. He opened the passenger door, especially to their bosses. The drive north was surprisingly comfortable. They discussed the hotel industry, architecture, and the challenges of maintaining luxury standards while implementing sustainability practices. Darius was knowledgeable but never condescending, asking questions that made her rethink long-held assumptions. You didn't always want to be in hospitality, he observed as they boarded the ferry to the islands, leaving their car below deck. Olivia leaned against the railing, watching Seattle shrink behind them. What makes you say that? You approach it like a puzzle to be solved, not a passion. His shoulder brushed hers as the ferry rocked. Don't misunderstand, you're exceptional at what you do. But there's a difference between excellence and fulfillment. She stiffened slightly. Not everyone has the luxury of pursuing fulfillment, Mr. Kingston. Back to Mr. Kingston now? His eyes crinkled. You grew up in Portland. Middle class. Scholarship to Cornell Hotel School. Graduated top of your class despite working 2 jobs. At her surprised look, he added, I read personnel files before making senior hires. Then you know I've worked for everything I have, and sacrificed much to get it. His voice softened. What I don't know is what Olivia Mercer does when she's not being indispensable. The question caught her off guard. What did she do? Work. Sleep just enough. Work more. The realization that she couldn't easily answer him was unsettling. The island appeared before them, green and rugged against the sparkling Puget Sound. As they disembarked and drove along winding roads, Olivia felt something inside her begin to unwind. Like a tightly coiled spring slowly releasing. Here we are, Darius said finally, pulling up to what appeared to be a modernist's dream, a striking structure of glass, stone, and sustainable timber that blended with the island landscape while simultaneously standing apart from it. This is not what I expected, Olivia admitted as they walked the property. The new Kingston Hotel was intimate rather than grandiose, with only 30 rooms, each uniquely designed to maximize the natural surroundings. The future of luxury isn't excess, Darius explained, leading her through spaces that seamlessly merged indoor comfort with outdoor beauty. It's exceptional experiences that can't be replicated. They spent hours exploring the nearly completed hotel. Olivia found herself offering suggestions that Darius noted seriously, sometimes implementing changes on the spot through calls to his construction manager. Her operational expertise blended with his design vision in a way that felt like a perfect partnership. After lunch on a terrace overlooking the water, Darius checked his watch. We have a few hours before we need to head back. There's something else I'd like to show you. They hiked a trail leading away from the hotel, climbing through ancient forest until they emerged at a cliffside lookout. The panoramic view stole Olivia's breath, islands dotting the sound like emeralds on blue silk, mountains rising in the distance, eagles soaring overhead. This is why I built here. Darius said quietly. Some things can't be manufactured or replicated. Olivia nodded. Understanding flowing between them without words, you know, he said after a moment. I've watched you run yourself into the ground for 3 years. She turned to look at him. Keeping tabs on me, Mr. Kingston? Yes. No apology, no deflection. At first I was impressed by your dedication, then concerned, eventually fascinated by my workaholism. She tried for lightness, by your passion disguised as duty, by the way you care for everyone but yourself. His gaze was steady. By the woman behind the manager. The air between them shifted, charged with something Olivia hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Professional boundaries tilted dangerously. This wasn't really about the hotel, was it? She asked softly. The hotel is real. My interest in your professional opinion is real. He stepped closer. But no, that's not the only reason I brought you here. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in impossible colors, Darius Kingston did something completely unprofessional. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. 1 day off in 3 years, he murmured. Was it worth it? For the first time in memory, Olivia didn't calculate her answer or consider its professional implications. She simply spoke the truth. Yes, she said, unexpectedly so. When his lips met hers, gentle and questioning, she surprised herself by answering with certainty, her hands finding the solid warmth of his shoulders as the world expanded around them, full of possibilities she'd forgotten to imagine. Whispers and warnings. The Kingston Grand hummed with its usual Monday morning efficiency, but something had shifted. Olivia moved through her routine with practiced precision, yet beneath the surface, everything had changed. The weekend lingered in her mind. Darius's hands warm against her back as they stood on that cliff, the quiet dinner they'd shared on the return journey, the careful way he'd said goodnight at her door, promising to call but asking for nothing. You look different, Tori observed, handing her the morning briefing. Good different. Rested, Olivia accepted the folder with a non-committal hum. How to explain that one weekend had cracked open a door she'd kept firmly shut? That professional ambition, once her sole focus, now shared space with something tender and new? The Jensen wedding went perfectly, Tori continued. Though Mr. Harrington complained about being moved to the second-best suite. She hesitated. Also, there are rumors. Olivia looked up sharply. Rumors? About you and Mr. Kingston. Someone saw you boarding the Anacortes ferry together. Ice slid down Olivia's spine. Of course there were rumors. The hospitality industry thrived on them, especially when they involved a female executive and the company's owner. Mr. Kingston asked for my input on the San Juan property, she said evenly. It was a professional consultation. Tori's expression remained carefully neutral. Of course. I just thought you should know people are talking. By afternoon, Olivia could feel the subtle shift in how staff interacted with her. Curious glances, conversations that stopped when she approached. She had spent years building her reputation on unassailable professionalism. Could one weekend undo all of that? Her email pinged with a message from Darius. Dinner tonight? There's a new Vietnamese place downtown I've been meaning to try. Her cursor hovered over the reply button. Whatever was happening between them deserved exploration, but at what cost to her carefully constructed career? A knock interrupted her thoughts. Victor Chambers, the hotel's sales director, leaned against her doorframe with a familiarity that made her straighten instinctively. So, he drawled, weekend getaway with the boss? Bold career move, Mercer. Victor had been her chief competitor for the operations manager position. 3 years later, he still carried the resentment like a treasured memento. I don't discuss my professional obligations with colleagues, Victor, she replied coolly. Was there something you needed? Just wondering how the rest of us can get a private audience with Kingston? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Some of us have ideas worth hearing too. Submit them through proper channels. Now, if you'll excuse me, you know, he interrupted. When Rebecca from accounting started dating the CFO last year, she was transferred to the Portland property within a month. Conflict of interest, they called it. The threat was thinly veiled. Olivia maintained her composure with practiced effort. I appreciate your concern for company policy. After he left, she sat motionless, staring at Darius's email. Her phone rang. Ellis Thornton, Kingston Hotel's HR director. Olivia, Ellis began without preamble, we need to discuss recent developments. By evening, Olivia was emotionally exhausted but resolute. When Darius texted again, should I be worried about your silence? She finally replied, can we meet at Westlake Park instead? 7 p.m. The park was busy enough to be public, quiet enough for privacy. Darius found her on a bench overlooking the fountain, her posture rigid despite her casual clothes. Something's wrong, he said immediately. Sitting beside her, I had a conversation with HR today. She kept her voice steady. About the company's fraternization policy. Understanding darkened his expression. Ellis called you in. Apparently, our weekend created quite the stir. I should have anticipated that. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry, Olivia. I never intended to complicate your professional standing. Didn't you? The question slipped out before she could temper it. You're Darius Kingston. You must have known what people would say. He was quiet for a moment, watching the water dance in the fountain. I've spent my life navigating other people's expectations and assumptions. At some point, you have to decide whether to live for yourself or for their perceptions. That's easier when you own the company, she pointed out. Is it? His gaze was intense. Every move I make affects thousands of employees, millions in shareholder value. You think I'm free? I'm just imprisoned in a larger gilded cage. The raw honesty in his voice silenced her objections. What exactly did Ellis say? He asked finally. That while the company doesn't prohibit relationships, they do require disclosure and appropriate professional boundaries. She looked down at her clasped hands. And that my performance evaluations would be transferred to another executive to avoid conflicts of interest. All reasonable precautions, Darius observed. So what's really bothering you? Olivia struggled to articulate the fear gripping her heart. Everything I've built, everything I've worked for, I'm afraid of losing it all because people will say I slept my way to the top. That I'll always be Kingston's girlfriend instead of operations manager Mercer. And if those things were mutually exclusive, your career as you've envisioned it and whatever this might become between us, which would you choose? The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Olivia had always chosen career, advancement, security. The path was clear, the outcomes measurable. Relationships were messy, unpredictable, dangerous. But sitting there, watching dusk settle over Seattle with this quietly complex man beside her, the calculus wasn't as simple as it once had been. I don't know, she admitted finally, and that terrifies me. Darius nodded slowly, respecting her honesty. Then perhaps we move forward carefully on your terms. I won't pretend I'm not drawn to you, Olivia, but I respect your work too much to undermine it. He stood, hands in his pockets. Take the time you need. I'll be here. As she watched him walk away, silhouetted against the city lights, Olivia realized that for the first time in her adult life, she was facing a challenge that couldn't be solved with efficiency, dedication, or perfect execution. This required something else entirely, courage of a different kind. The proposal in Paris. 3 months passed in a delicate balance. Olivia and Darius navigated their developing relationship with careful boundaries. No meetings alone at the hotel, no public displays that might fuel gossip, professional interactions conducted with the same efficiency as before. In private, they discovered each other slowly, building something that felt increasingly essential to them both. Still, Olivia felt the weight of whispers, the subtle reassessment from colleagues who had once respected her without question. Victor Chambers had become particularly problematic, dropping insinuations in executive meetings, questioning her decisions in ways that highlighted her connection to Darius. You need to fire him, Darius said one evening as they walked along the waterfront. Careful to maintain a professional distance in public and confirm everyone's suspicions that I'm running to you with my problems. Olivia shook her head. I've handled difficult people my entire career. Victor is just another challenge. Darius respected her boundaries, though she could see it frustrated him to watch her struggle when his position could easily resolve the issue. It was one of many complexities. They were learning to navigate, the power imbalance that existed, regardless of how equally they treated each other in private. When Darius mentioned an upcoming trip to Paris to scout potential European locations, Olivia felt a mixture of relief and regret. 2 weeks apart would allow professional waters to calm, but she'd grown accustomed to his presence in her life. The thoughtful texts throughout her day, quiet dinners in out-of-the-way restaurants, weekends exploring the Pacific Northwest. "Come with me," he suggested, tracing patterns on her palm as they sat in her apartment the night before his departure. Olivia laughed softly. "That would certainly keep the rumors at bay." "Not as my operations manager," he clarified. "As my guest. Take vacation time. Those 3 weeks you've accumulated since your grand one-day-off experiment." The idea was tempting, but terrifying. That would make a statement we might not be ready for. "Perhaps I'm ready," he said quietly. "Perhaps I've been ready since that day on the island." The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. They had been careful to keep their relationship developing at a measured pace, neither rushing toward definitions or declarations. But underneath their careful restraint, Olivia had felt the current strengthening, pulling them towards something inevitable. "Think about it," he said, kissing her softly before leaving. "The offer stands." Alone in her apartment, Olivia found herself at a crossroads. The professional part of her insisted that accompanying Darius to Paris would permanently alter how she was perceived at Kingston hotels. The woman who had emerged these past months, the one who had rediscovered joy, passion, and possibility, whispered that some things were worth the risk. The next day, facing a mountain of work without Darius's occasional texts to brighten the hours, she made her decision. She scheduled a meeting with Ellis Thornton and formally requested 3 weeks of vacation time. "Paris, I presume?" Ellis asked with a knowing smile. "My destination is my own business," Olivia replied, then softened. "But yes, I need to see this through, Ellis, whatever the professional consequences." Ellis's expression grew serious. "You've earned your success here, Olivia. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Darius Kingston was impressed with your work long before he was interested in you personally." 3 days later, Olivia stepped off a plane at Charles de Gaulle Airport, equal parts terrified and exhilarated. Darius waited beyond security, a rare public smile lighting his face when he spotted her. "You came," he said, echoing their exchange that Saturday morning months ago. "I said I would," she replied, completing the ritual. Paris embraced them in its timeless romance, mornings exploring potential hotel properties, afternoons wandering historic streets, evenings savoring long dinners in candlelit bistros. Away from Seattle's constraints, they moved through the city hand in hand, no longer hiding or calculating each interaction. On their 5th evening, Darius took her to a small restaurant overlooking the Seine, its terrace offering a view of Notre Dame illuminated against the night sky. After their meal, as they lingered over glasses of wine, he reached into his pocket. "I had a different plan for this," he admitted, setting a small velvet box on the table between them. "Something grand and romantic, but sitting here watching you in this light, I can't wait another moment." Olivia's heart stuttered as he opened the box, revealing a stunning diamond set in platinum, its design elegant and understated. "This isn't because you're brilliant at your job, though you are," Darius said softly. "It's not because you're beautiful, though you take my breath away. It's because you challenge me, match me, make me better." He took her hand. "I've built hotels around the world, Olivia, but I've never built a life with someone. I want to build one with you." The world seemed to pause around them. The city lights, the flowing river, the ancient cathedral standing witness. All the professional concerns that had consumed her for months suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the man before her, offering his heart with the same quiet intensity he brought to everything that mattered to him. "People will talk," she whispered, though her fingers tightened around his. "Let them." His thumb brushed over her knuckles. "We know the truth. That's all that matters." Olivia Mercer, who had spent her life making safe, calculated decisions, looked at the ring, at Darius, at the life suddenly opening before her. "Yes," she said simply. Then again, with gathering certainty, Yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the weight of it felt not like a burden, but a ballast, something to keep her steady as she navigated uncharted waters. Rewriting the rules. The news of their engagement spread through Kingston hotels like wildfire. By the time they returned to Seattle, Olivia's inbox overflowed with congratulations, thinly veiled curiosity, and a few messages of barely disguised resentment. Victor Chambers had sent a particularly cutting note about career advancement through matrimony that she deleted without response. "We need to address this properly," Darius said as they discussed their return to normal operations. Not with apologies or explanations, but with clarity. They called a company-wide town hall, unusual for the normally reserved Kingston, and stood together before hundreds of employees, from executives to housekeeping staff. "As you've likely heard, Ms. Mercer and I are engaged," Darius began simply. "This personal development does not change the professional structure of Kingston Hotels. Ms. Mercer will continue in her role as operations manager, reporting to our COO rather than directly to me." Olivia stepped forward, her voice steady. "I understand there may be questions or concerns about our relationship and its impact on the workplace. I welcome those conversations through appropriate channels." Her gaze found Victor in the crowd. "What I will not tolerate is speculation that undermines the professional environment we've all worked to create." The directness of their approach silenced much of the gossip. There were still whispers, of course, but they diminished as weeks passed and both Darius and Olivia maintained their professional standards without wavering. 6 months after their engagement, as wedding plans progressed, Olivia faced a new challenge. The Kingston board had approved expansion into the Asian market, with a flagship property planned for Singapore. The position of regional director had opened, a significant promotion that would normally be a logical next step in her career path. "You should apply," Darius told her one evening as they reviewed the posting together. "You're the most qualified candidate by far." "And if I get it?" "What then?" Olivia set down her tablet. "You can't relocate to Singapore. The board would have a meltdown if their CEO tried to run the company remotely because of his wife. So we find a solution. I can spend 2 weeks each month there. Or you can build the team and then return to oversee operations from Seattle." His expression grew serious. "What I won't accept is you passing on opportunities because of me." The old Olivia would have leapt at the position without hesitation, sacrificing personal happiness for career advancement. The woman she had become recognized that such choices weren't so simple, or perhaps they were simpler than she'd once believed. "What if I want something different now?" she asked quietly. "Not smaller, just different." The question led to long conversations about their future, about what success really meant to each of them. For Darius, who had inherited his position and spent years proving he deserved it, success increasingly meant creating something meaningful rather than just profitable. For Olivia, who had fought for every opportunity, success had been about advancement. Now, it shifted toward impact and fulfillment. Their wedding was intimate, family and close friends gathering at the San Juan Island property that had started their journey. Ella served as Olivia's attendant, having become a trusted friend and advocate. Even Victor attended, his congratulations finally seeming genuine after Olivia had steadfastly refused to be diminished by his pettiness. 3 months after the wedding, Kingston Hotels announced a new initiative, the Mercer Kingston Foundation for Hospitality Education, providing scholarships and apprenticeships to promising students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Olivia would serve as its executive director, working alongside her role as operations manager. "Your idea of something different," Darius observed as they reviewed the foundation's first group of scholarship recipients. "Our idea," she corrected. "A way to honor where we came from while building something new together." The following spring, they broke ground on another project, a home overlooking the same cliff where they had first acknowledged their feelings. As they stood watching the construction begin, Darius pulled her close. "Any regrets?" he asked. "About the paths not taken?" Olivia considered the question seriously. She had declined the Singapore position, choosing instead to focus on the foundation while maintaining her role at the Seattle property. Some might view it as a compromise, but it felt like something else entirely, a conscious choice rather than a sacrifice. "No regrets," she said firmly. "Just gratitude for that one day off that changed everything." Darius laughed, the sound rare and treasured. "The best investment I ever made." As they watched the sunset paint the islands in gold and pink, Olivia reflected on how thoroughly her life had transformed. The driven professional who measured success in promotions and accolades still existed within her. But she now stood alongside a woman who understood that true accomplishment couldn't be contained in a title or salary. She had once feared that loving Darius would diminish her professional identity. Instead, it had expanded her definition of success to include joy, partnership, and purpose beyond advancement. What had begun as an impossible request, a single day away from duty, had become an invitation to a life more complete than she had allowed herself to imagine. That evening, as they reviewed plans for both the foundation and their home, Olivia's phone buzzed with a message from Tori. Still her loyal assistant. "Congratulations! Just saw the announcement. So happy for you both." Darius leaned over her shoulder. "What announcement?" Olivia smiled, handing him her tablet open to the company's internal newsletter. There, alongside updates about quarterly earnings and property developments, was a simple statement. "The Kingston Grand is pleased to announce that Operations Manager Olivia Mercer Kingston has been appointed to the company's board of directors, the first operations professional to hold such a position." "Did you know about this?" she asked. "The board votes independently," he replied, genuine pleasure in his expression. "This was their decision, not mine. Though I can't say I'm surprised. You've more than earned it." As night fell over the islands, Olivia Mercer Kingston stood beside the man who had once been only her boss, then her lover, now her husband and partner. Together they had rewritten the rules of their world, proving that sometimes the most dedicated people need to remember exactly what they're working for.